We are Geeks Not Nerds. I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Vince!
And I'm Troy.
Troy is guesting with us today because he is the guy who made us go see the film that we're reviewing this week. I'd like to thank you in advance, Troy, not for bringing us to the film, but for being on the program.
Okay.
Today we're going to be reviewing a movie called Columbiana, which is starring Zoe Saldana and directed by Olivier Megaton.
Wasn't he on Transformers?
I'm not sure if that's exactly how you pronounce his name because he's French, but I'm going to say Olivier Megaton.
He is Megaton.
He's also the guy who directed Transporter 3. I don't know if that was any good, but that's I guess the only other thing.
The first two Transporter movies were entertaining.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I didn't watch them.
Neither did I.
Anyway, so new Zoe Saldana action flick, and Vince, what is this film about in a nutshell?
It is about a young girl whose family is killed by mobsters. The family is also involved with the mob, and she runs away and vows vengeance on the people who killed her family.
The Colombian mob.
The Colombian mob, because it's Columbiana.
And Vince, you being kind of our expert, vengeance film expert,
why don't you might be up there?
Yeah, all right. But you've done so many recommends of vengeance films, and you're obviously well versed in the revenge genre, if we can call it a subgenre. Why don't you take the floor first?
I'd like to say that I think your character needs to have the capacity for it. There needs to be a reason for this person to have the skills that he or she does. You do need to set up a precedent for your character to have motives. That's certainly necessary. But you should also
any story, not just revenge. Yeah.
Yeah. But you should also have a character who has a logical means of acquiring the skills that she has. I mean, when we start out this movie, basically in the first act, she's obviously has this penchant for parkour. She can run and jump around like all nimbly bimbly from tree to tree.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And apparently everybody in the Colombian mob has the ability to do that too.
I was pretty sure she was bitten by a radioactive something.
I was just certain that anybody who lives in a favela can do parkour.
Yeah. Because you got to be able to jump off a tin roof into a board awning and survive and stuff. But I don't know. I mean, what do you guys? I didn't think that she had any reason. She just she's very calm and collected throughout the entire death of her family. Which during the trailer she says that it happened in front of her, which it didn't. It happened in a room that was adjacent to her.
She also says it happened in front of her later in the movie and makes a huge deal out of it.
It happened
in front of me. Like as if we've never seen a movie where that was a problem.
Right.
They were trying to burn this into our skulls. It was in front of me.
Like, they didn't even make her watch. They came around the corner and they said to her, hey, sometimes bad people do bad things and then they get hurt. Now you should help me out. And she says, hey, I'm going to destroy all of you because I am the supremest bad buttocks person on the face of this planet. And
I would also say along that point that it seemed to me that even though her family was kind of involved in organized crime, they were definitely steering her away from it. You got the feeling that she was a very scholastically achieved little girl who was working towards being some sort of, not involved in the criminal aspect of her parents' occupation.
Absolutely. I felt like the directing and the writing of this film gave the audience no credit at all. At any moment, they wanted you to feel a certain way, even if that was contradictory to the way they wanted you to feel earlier in the movie, with the same character. So with Zoe Saldana's character, we've got somebody who seems to be really methodical and then really emotional. At various points, she seems like a different.
Irresponsible.
She seems like a very different person, scene to scene. The same person who so easily could sit there like Vince was saying and just stare at this guy right after he killed her parents, and he's trying to talk to her all nice and stuff, and then jab him with a knife in his hand, and then later cry about it, and then later and same age, same girl. She's not changed. She's not had any time to change. Later on, goes to, is it her uncle? Or,
it's her uncle.
Yeah, who and say, I want to kill people for a living. These are things that are not meshing for me.
Well,
I'm not saying that you can't be emotional and want revenge. I'm not saying that these things can't work. I'm saying that both the writing and the acting, I wasn't buying it.
And with the uncle, it seemed to me that like he definitely had some sort of a penchant for those skills.
Absolutely.
But you don't get any sort of background into how he developed his skill. He mentions the death of his son and how he went on a rampage afterwards in order to avenge the killers of his son. But you get a tiny taste of him beating up a chained man in a chair in the beginning to give him this idea that he is somehow involved in organized crime. But the only other time you ever see him perform any tasks that are remote to that are when he shoots in front of the school when he's trying to convince her that she needs to go to school. And
she tries to convince her. He tries to convince her of this by killing someone in front of her.
Right. And
which most of this happens in the first act. I want to say that.
Yeah, right,
which led me.
And by the way, I said Zoe Saldana's character, but this is while she's still being portrayed by an 11-year-old girl. One thing I will give it is I found, and I don't know if you guys are gonna agree with this or not. I found the little girl more convincing than Zoe Saldana.
Absolutely.
And I thought that they did an extremely good job casting her, and she looks just like her. I was really impressed with that, and I thought that the little girl, now I don't understand this character. I don't get this character, but I felt like the little girl got this character better than I did, and I felt like she got this character better than Zoe Saldana did.
I would agree with that.
I sort of wonder whether or not, because they mention it during the movie. They say it a couple times. They say a woman couldn't possibly do what Saldana's character is doing.
We should get into that a little bit.
Now, is that an opportunity for them to play up the women empowerment thing?
I think that's what it is.
I feel like they're trying to undershoot women to show how much empowered she is in the movie.
And that's two things. It's standard in these kind of movies. It's also extremely outdated. You could get away with that kind of thing back in 1995, in a way you can't get away with it now.
Right.
Because these days your general audience doesn't need to be convinced of women empowerment. We're a little bit used to this at this point.
Yeah, we've all seen the movie where Jennifer Lopez gets back at her husband for beating on her and beating
She
on her
beats
kid.
up the Rocketeer.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've seen enough of these strong female characters who we actually buy.
Yeah.
That we don't need a movie to convince us of it just because. And so it seems sexist while it's trying not to be all at the same time. And you see that all the time with directors and writers who don't get women and are writing them.
Right.
I think something that the reason why her character has this ability to do these things with no explanation of her ever having learned them, especially as a little girl, because she obviously has some of these skills from the beginning. I think what they're trying to show you is that these women have this strength, and that it's a natural part of being human. And the problem that presents for me is not that women can or cannot do something. It's that a little boy would not necessarily pull out a knife, jam it in a man's hand, and then jump out a window and run for miles and miles and miles across rooftops. So what I'm trying to say here is that it makes no sense. They don't,
regardless of gender.
Yeah, regardless of gender, the way that they're trying to establish this character as an aggressive force is by just saying that she is one, and they're not giving any reason for this character. It's not a gender role thing. It is a character. It's not a character flaw. It's an imperfection within a character.
I agree with you. We've got a movie that isn't doing a good enough job establishing credibility in any fashion. We've got no credibility for character development, for motivation. We've also got no credibility for the physics of the universe.
Yeah.
We've got a movie here that is trying to take itself extremely seriously, while we, the audience, can't. I can't remember the last time I laughed so hard in the movie theater. And that's not a good thing.
Yeah, it's not a comedy.
It's not trying to be a comedy, and it becomes laughable because, well, let me just put it this way: this is a movie where nobody at any point in the film should say the word impossible, and they do. We've got that cop, like you guys mentioned earlier, who says, "Oh well, it couldn't possibly be a woman." That's impossible. And I saw lots of impossible things in this movie. There were lots of things, and the thing is, you can get away with impossible things in an action film if you establish credibility in your universe. Where in this universe that is possible, but I couldn't suspend my disbelief in any way, shape, or form here.
I mean, take for example that scene where he shoots up the school to prove to her that she needs to go to school. Shoots up in front of the school. The only thing I
car in front of the school.
The only thing I could think in my head was I wouldn't want to take my daughter where a person could shoot in front of a school and there would be no police response and I could just walk away.
What's weird, the police start to show up and they just walk away, like him being with this kid is automatically going to solve the problem. I'm with this kid, obviously, I didn't shoot anything.
I have a kid
50 people are out there. They just saw you shoot that car. What do you do? Really? Anyway.
And of course, the most glaring examples, as Vince mentioned to me in the movie theater, are all the weapons that seem to be way exaggerated and do things that no weapons could ever do. And understand, I am not nitpicking. This takes you out of the movie because it doesn't make sense.
Not every grenade will produce fire, a concussion blast, and fragments. It's not going to happen. And just because you put an explosive round, or whatever you want to call it, I don't know, on a door trying to blow it apart, it's not a nuke. You're not going to destroy the door and everything around it. These people are crazy.
After about the 18th explosion, Vince looks over, and this movie has lots of explosions.
Almost Michael Bay-esque in that sense.
And again,
almost Bay films are deeper, I would say, in a way.
And again,
wow.
That's not a selling point. You know what I mean? Like some people are like, there's so many explosions, go see this movie. But no, because they don't work. After about that many explosions, Vince looks at me and says, they are way exaggerating what weapons could do in this movie. And I looked over at Vince and said, I want to see somebody throw a lollipop and see what happens. That is the end of our 10 minutes. I want to throw this out real quick too before we get to the end of this and give our final verdicts. Gee, I wonder what those are going to be. I also wanted to mention that. Oh man, I lost it. What was it?
The Geek Connection, right?
Well, yeah, we were going to do that too, but there was just one more point I was going to make, and I totally just forgot. Oh. Gratuitousness, not just the explosions, not just the violence, but every cliched, gratuitous scene you would expect is in this movie, and for no good reason. You have the gratuitous sex scene, you have gratuitous explosions, you have the gratuitous shower scene. Yeah. These things serve no purpose.
She's so empowered. Let's make her into a sex symbol the whole time.
Sure, yeah. Well, and that's again a standard and outdated thing to do. Yeah. So now it's time for this film's Geek Connection. Of course, it's not inherently a geeky movie, but there are naturally some geeky things in it. Unfortunately, the people involved in this movie don't know their geek culture, and so one of the major things does not work. And for that is there is a Xena connection. Early on in the movie, the little girl is reading a Xena comic book, and in 1992. And here's the thing: they seem to be trying to use Xena as a symbol in this movie, but they don't know who she is or even when she was invented, because the Xena series didn't begin until 1995. And it was 1992, and it was weird too because, and this is neither here nor there, but bear with me for a minute because I think this is really bizarre. I think I read somewhere that this movie was supposed to come out like earlier or something. I don't know if I'm right about that, but here's the thing. The timestamp at the beginning is 1992, and the movie theater that we saw it in was somewhat out of focus, which Vince was not real happy about. And so I wondered, the picture was somewhat out of focus, and so I wondered if I read the timestamp wrong.
No,
but it really was
1992.
And I looked it up later, and it indeed was 1992. But when they come into the present, it says 15 years later. Had it been 96, that would be now. Yeah. But it was 1992, and so I was like, "Oh no!" So like the regular events in the movie happened in 2007, and she's reading a Xena comic book in 1992. The other thing that was really silly about that is she has this line, and again. This is a problem because it seems to be a character-defining moment where she says, I used to want to be like Xena.
The young girl says this.
The young girl says, this is actually the scene just before the shooting up of the school. I guess that's what we keep going back to. I used to want to be like Xena. Now I want to be a killer. Xena was a killer.
And then she became Xena.
And then she became a hero. But she's on that angel-esque redemption journey where the reason she becomes a hero is because she's trying to pay for all the villages she plundered and killed people in.
Right.
And if they knew their stuff, they could have actually made that really interesting, right? Because what if you had this girl who wanted to be like the old Xena, not the hero version, where she catches on to this is a hero, but she doesn't get it. You see what I'm saying? That would be interesting. That would be compelling. And it's sad that they didn't catch that because they could have gone somewhere with that idea.
Right.
The other neat connection I wanted to mention is Cullen Blue, who played General Zod in, well, actually Major Zod, yeah, Smallville, in Smallville season 9, and he is used here to no effect at all. Really, he was completely wasted. He was pretty much there.
An arbitrary CIA agent.
Yeah, and pretty much just there to sit in a room and have a mildly amusing moment where he's like, "Oh, she can't hurt me through these windows," and then she fires, and then he's like, "Oh no!" And I mean, he was funny, but he was completely wasted. And also, I don't think he does a very good job of faking an American accent. I felt like his accent was bleeding through a lot.
He had a lot of mouth movement.
Did you notice that too?
Trying to portray an English or American accent.
This is true. Also, Zoe Saldana was in Star Trek as Uhura, and she's, the remake of Star Trek.
What do you guys think of Zoe Saldana? She hasn't impressed me yet.
I think she's an okay actress, but I haven't seen her in anything that I thought she was leaps and bounds above other people.
Yeah, I can only think of one movie that I was forced to watch and eventually came to kind of like because it's so bad, called Center Stage, where she plays a ballerina.
Okay.
Where she plays this kind of girl from the streets, which seems like a much more fitting character for her rather than someone who I don't know. It makes more sense in my head in that movie than any other character I've ever seen.
And here it was such sloppy filmmaking. I felt like she was lost.
Yeah.
I just felt like she had no idea what her character was supposed to be, and I don't think anybody in the picture did. So that's not necessarily her fault.
I don't even know if she's actually Colombian.
I think she's a mixture between black and Latino. I could be wrong, but I think she is a mix.
That seemed to be the case, yeah.
And that's what they tried to portray in the movie anyway.
So, final verdict. Vince, do you recommend the film?
No. Don't see the movie. It's very confused in what it's trying to achieve. It thinks it's trying to put this this feminist message forward, but really it's just a silly action flick that's poorly made. And that's my final thought.
Troy?
Absolutely not. I feel horrible that I made these guys go to it. It was my pick.
And you said it was done by the same people who did Taken, right?
It was done by the producers from Taken, as well as The Professional, which are two amazing films, in my opinion.
And I, of course, also do not recommend the film. So thanks a lot for watching Geeks Not Nerds, and let us know if you saw the movie, what you thought of it. Honestly, kind of a small film. I didn't even know about it until you brought it up. So this is probably a smaller film than what we'll usually review when we review movies on the show. But anyway, if you happen to think maybe this is interesting, we all say don't go. And thanks a whole lot for watching. I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Vince.
And I'm Troy.
And we'll see you next time on Geeks Not Nerds.